Okay, welcome back for what should be the last one of the leagues for tonight. We're going to talk about WWCF, which is the other bowl-bound college football league. If you'd like to join this one or more information on it, go to WWCF.us. That's Whiskey Charlie Foxtrot. Um, and also, you can go to SimNation.us or SimNation.net, get more information around just all the leagues in general. There are forums there if you'd like to talk with other coaches, get tips, get hints, get all that. WWCF of the two leagues is the older, more established one. It's been around for a little bit longer than GDCFL. They both have great coaching communities, though, who are very helpful and will help get new coaches up to speed. Um, Also, if you want, follow this channel or click a like. I'll also put the YouTube information up for this as well, so that way you can access it. We have a Discord channel. We also have a Slack channel for this, so I'll definitely put that up. And of course, SimNation is a conglomeration of a lot of different leagues. You have WWCS, which is the College Soccer League. You have WWPF, which is Draft Day Sports Pro Football. It's been around for a while. And then you have SNCFL, which is the college football version of Wolverine Studios Draft Day Sports. And then you have BBC, the two bowl-bound college football leagues, WWCF and GDCFL. And we're in the process of getting the Draft Day Sports College Basketball League up, which will be another one, which will ultimately feed into a pro basketball league. And next month we'll be looking at adding a college baseball league. So lots of different leagues to play here. It's a good active community. We have some other events that will be coming, but really want to talk about uh, WWCF. So we're now getting ready. We're getting closer and closer to the beginning of the season. We have about 3 more sims before that happens. So roughly about next Saturday, we'll probably be starting the new season. A couple of things since the last time we talked. We have moved out of recruiting. We've moved into the off season. We're now more in scheduling. Where coaches are requesting different out of conference scheduling. Of course, conference scheduling is all done by the computer. Um, so since the last time we talked, we have our preseason rankings. Merrill, who's one of the long-standing coaches here, is preseason number 1 and number 2. So Rutgers is number 1. Texas Tech is number 2. Unlike in real life, both of these are powerhouses, largely defined by the rushing attacks. Although, be careful with that because both of them have pretty decent quarterbacks and can throw the ball. Number 3 is California. That's Marcus. Marcus is one of the better coaches in the league, and California is a pretty strong team to have to deal with. Texas, of course, is number 4. That's John LeBlanc, who mentioned in GDCFL. He may not have won as many championships recently, but he is considered one of the best coaches in the league. I think one of the challenges he runs into with Texas, of course, is he's in the same division as Texas Tech, which is Merrill. And then, of course, you have Rice. Talk about them a little bit in Texas A&M. So Rice is Mike Cart. Talked about him a little bit in the GDCFL, and then you have Max, who I mentioned as well in the previous one at Texas A&M. So that Southern Division in the Big 12 is it's nasty with the amount of good teams. Now, if I were to move Texas to the north, it'd probably win it every season and then be playing Merrill every season for the championship. Cincinnati's open if you have any interest. And that's really your top 5. Mississippi is another human controlled team. And then, of course, Maryland is at number 7. 8, Oregon is open. USC, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember who USC is. And I should feel really bad that I can't remember that. So, Mississippi, of course, is Delbert. USC is Mike Schmigo. Sorry, Mike. So we talked about Mike in the last one, him winning the championship at Texas in the GDCFL. Mike's one of those coaches you just don't want to play him. Georgia, of course, is Max. I'll talk about them in a second. And then really rounding out the um, top 20, Ohio State is Rob Benoit. He's a great coach. He also has South Florida. Florida is Harry. Michigan is Greg Domstead. Greg is another one of those really good coaches. Marshall was coached by Mike Deals. Mike is taking a break for now, but Marshall's still one of those teams to watch out for. I mentioned Rice earlier. That's Mike. Cart, I do believe. No, that's in the other league. And then Alabama is Tim Sanders. Alabama's a really good team. Baylor is my second team. They tend to win the North in tight competition with Oklahoma. West Virginia is Berto. Pittsburgh is Jacob. And then you have TCU's open, and of course Oklahoma is Greg. So Oklahoma is in competition always with Baylor. Kind of what I'm going to do real quick is just walk through the league standings and then kind of give a quick preview and slash predictions. ACC is, the Atlantic is really Maryland. They have not lost the division since 2010. And of course we are now in the 2039 season. So for 29 straight seasons, Maryland has won that division. No one is going to really knock them out of it. The last team to win it was Florida State, and of course that's Nigel. Navy has a chance. Navy has for a while, since moving into the ACC, been one of the thorns in Maryland's side. That's Max. But there's a huge talent differential there. I don't see Navy taking Maryland out. So Maryland will likely win another one of these. And then the coastals become very, very competitive. So you have Dave, who is at Georgia Tech. You have Marcus, who's at Miami. You have Harry, who's at Virginia Tech. All three of those in the most recent seasons have really battled it out for that coastal title. I think it'll be the same way this year again. I think Harry will reestablish himself and win the coastal this year. He had a lot of things going on last season. I think that kept him from focusing on it. But I mean, it's really, I think, going to be a 3-horse race. It's going to be very close, and there won't be much difference between the different ones, and it really is going to come down to that schedule. I'm trying to remember if any of them play Maryland directly. Yeah, so Harry doesn't play Maryland this season, so that may be the very reason why he makes it. Although, to be careful, is Harry plays Maryland very well. Dave will be a hard matchup, as will Marcus. I think it comes down between Dave and Harry, and I think Harry just edges Dave out for it. Although Georgia Tech may have a good enough season to slide into the playoffs as a number 3 team. Conference-wise, if it is Maryland versus Virginia Tech, this isn't one of the better Maryland teams, not like last year when they won the championship. So I think Virginia Tech would win that championship game, and I think the same holds true for Dave if Georgia Tech makes it. All paths in the Big East lead through Rutgers. Maybe that would have been slightly different if Rick had stayed at Cincinnati, but it'll be interesting to see how Berto does with West Virginia. He's a coach who has a long-standing history with WWCF. He's a really good coach. It'll be interesting to see how he stacks up against Mike or Merrill. Um, they'll if Mike Dills comes back, Marshall immediately gets in that bucket. But I expect Rutgers to win the North. The South is going to be a little bit wide open because you don't have Rick at Cincinnati anymore. And I gotta update the webpage because a couple people aren't there. I think South Florida with Rob, he can sneak in there and take it. I still think Cincinnati is going to probably take this division, although look very heavily at South Florida because Rob is a very good coach, and I won't be shocked if I see South Florida. I'm just going to say South Florida wins the South. It'll be Rutgers versus South Florida. Rutgers wins the conference and goes to the playoffs. Um, in the Big Ten is interesting, um, mostly because you now have beats at Notre Dame. So Graham he was a longtime coach at Oregon. Oregon was a powerhouse when he was there. He built them into it. He's already started building Notre Dame into one. They had a really good recruiting season. So Jacob is the incumbent, the team to beat right now at Pittsburgh. Michigan State is CPU controlled, but still a powerhouse. So I think it's going to come down between Pittsburgh, Michigan State, and Notre Dame. And it's really going to come down between Jacob and Graham. I think this one's too close to call. I think that I think either of the two could take it. I'm going to choose not to pick one. But I don't think I can do that though. I think Graham takes Notre Dame to the championship. Notre Dame is a quiet powerhouse right now. With the right coach, I think that they make it, and Graham is definitely that coach. I think Jacob's gonna make it very hard on them though. So whoever wins that head-to-head game is probably going to be the the division champion for the East. In the West, in the Big Ten, you have Greg at Michigan. You have Rob at Ohio State. I don't think that there's anyone else in there. I think if Greg is focused, I think that the Michigan-Ohio State game decides this division. I think this goes to Rob. So I think you'll see Rob win the West. It'll be close again. It'll come down to that final head-to-head game between those two teams. And of course, Michigan and Ohio State hate each other. John's probably sticking pins in a voodoo doll right now on me saying, how dare you choose Ohio State over Michigan? And just bear in mind, guys, I'm a Maryland fan. I hate both. They both routinely beat them, but I hate Michigan a little bit more than I hate Ohio State. That just has to do, well, actually, I hate them both. Never mind. I really wish I didn't have to pick either of these two teams. But I think that Rob just has a little bit more at Ohio State to work with this year than Greg has at Michigan. Ohio State had slightly better recruiting class. So I'm gonna say it. I think Ohio State wins it, and then I think that I think it's a toss-up. I think Notre Dame actually wins the conference, and then I think that you have two teams make it into the playoffs. Who those two teams are, I don't know yet. I think it's one of them's probably Notre Dame, and then it'll come down to whichever of the two teams has the better record, whether it's Pittsburgh, Ohio State, or Michigan. In the Big 12, again, this kind of comes back to is if Greg is back and Greg is able to focus on this, I think Oklahoma wins the North. He hasn't been able to the last few seasons. He's got a lot of stuff going on. I think in this regard, Baylor probably, if that's the case, Baylor will probably win the North again. Baylor had a very strong recruiting season. They play well above their prestige level in many regards, but whoever wins this isn't going to win the conference. The conference is going to be either Texas or Texas Tech. I think Rice and Texas A&M are going to make it difficult. Again, Mike and Max are great coaches. But I think this is John versus Merrill. I think that this is the year that John gets Merrill. I think Texas wins the division. Texas wins the conference, but Texas and Texas Tech and potentially Baylor all go to the playoffs. And that'll create an interesting dynamic. One of the reasons why I think that happens is, if I remember correctly, yeah. So I think Travis Bates is able to help them really do well. He's got the right pieces. The challenge with Texas is, in order to beat Texas Tech, you really have to stop the running attack. And Gilbert Nolan is going to be a hard person to deal with. So in John's ideal world is Maryland and Texas Tech almost always play each other in week 2. In John's perfect world, Maryland's defense breaks every bone in Gilbert Nolan's body and takes out the second string running back too. And bear in mind, this has happened, right? And if that happens, then it forces Maryland to have to throw the ball, and John has a much better chance of beating them if they have to throw the ball than if they just straight up run at them. Texas Tech is really hard to stop. Maryland stopped them in the playoffs last year because they took out the running back on the second play of the game. Which was due penance for the year before, where Texas Tech took out Maryland's quarterback on literally the second play of the game. But I think Texas wins it. Texas Tech is in the playoffs, and then Baylor could slip in. Conference USA, you have Mike at Northwestern. I think Harry's at Ball State, if I remember correctly. You have Air Force is John. Illinois is Mike. I think that's. If I miss anything, don't get mad at me, please. I want to say Eastern Michigan could be Rob. See John, Harry. No, I'm thinking of GDCFL. So this is an interesting one. Is all roads in the all roads in Conference USA East lead through Ball State. Mike will make it competitive at Northwestern. Harry, I think, wins again, and they have an obscene streak going, if I remember correctly. But I think that Harry wins the East at Ball State, and it'll be close with Northwestern. And then Air Force and Illinois are always battling this out. Mike probably wins these more than John does. I'm going to go ahead and say Mike wins it again this year. But I think last season John actually got the win over Mike. But both of those teams are always right up there in the thick of it. I think Mike gets it, and Mike will take on Harry, and I think Harry will be the one going to the playoffs. In the MAC, you have Tim at Army. You have, I think that's it. So Army is pretty good. We could talk about the Commander-in-Chief real quick. I want to say that, and I could be very, very wrong on this, so I'm going to check before I say it. Because I don't want to get them. So you had Navy, who's 9-4. You had Air Force, and yeah, so Mike got it last year. Who was 8-5, and they beat Army, lost to Navy. I think Navy beat Army, and Air Force won. Yeah. So last year, Max won the Commander-in-Chief. I think Max wins it again this year. It'll be a little bit closer. I think this year, I don't think he's going to steamroll both teams. Army's a good team, and I think that Tim has made some really good progress with Army. in the time he's been there. I remember before he got there, they were probably one of the most pathetic teams. Uh, East is really about Connecticut. I see Connecticut winning that again this year. The West is really about Northern Illinois. I'm gonna double check, make sure I'm not too far off though. Yeah, so Connecticut, Western Kentucky, uh, Western Michigan, Northern Illinois. Again, I'm thinking GDCFL. So it's really about Western Kentucky. Western Michigan will challenge. I think Indiana will challenge, but it'll be Western Kentucky versus Connecticut. Connecticut will win the conference. In the Mountain West, again, you only have one human control team out here. That's Wyoming. That's Rob. If we look at what happened out there last year, Idaho is the perpetual whipping boy for Rutgers and Texas Tech. Miller schedules them every year, and generally two other losses is that. I think when we look at the conference this year, I think Idaho is right up there again. I think Wyoming challenges, Washington State challenges. I think Idaho takes the conference, the division again. And then I think on the west side, I think UTEP takes it, and then it'll be UTEP versus Idaho. Idaho will win it. Idaho goes to the playoffs, and unfortunately, Idaho gets either a number one seed or number two, and they're not going to make it past the first round. Pac-12 wise, we kind of talked a little bit about Pac-12 earlier. Is Marcus is at California. Oregon was Rick. He stepped down. I want to say that Washington is open. So the only two human control teams now in the Pac-12. If you want to join us, great place, good teams. Two really good teams are open. There, Oregon being one of them. Utah is another one. I think this really comes down to California versus USC. Similar to what happened last year, I think it's going to happen again this year. So I think Oregon could potentially trip up Marcus. I don't really think it's going to happen though. And then there's really no one who's going to trip up USC. If Rick was at Utah still, I think that you could see that. But Mike is a phenomenal coach, and I think it'll be Mike versus Marcus. If both teams will go to the playoffs, but it'll be Mike that probably wins the conference. SEC here is very bruising. It's not much different than any other place. You have Harry at Florida. You have Max at Georgia. Of course, Max is coming off a phenomenally great recruiting class, which was the second best since we flipped the file. In both average stars and in points. You have me at South Carolina. You have Greg at Tennessee. It's stacked. I think this is really Florida versus Georgia. A lot of seasons they flip-flop about who gets it. Max got it last year. I think Harry wins it this year, but Georgia's in the playoffs. Doesn't matter. On the opposite side, it's pretty wide open. You have Delbert at Mississippi. You have Tim at Alabama. I think those are the two big ones. You have John at LSU. I don't think LSU is ready to compete yet. John's doing a great job, though. He's getting them better year over year, but I don't think they're going to be, though, this year. So I think it's Delbert versus Tim. Tim had a little bit of a up and down season last season. I think Delbert probably has the advantage. He gets the division title. Alabama's right up there for a potential playoff spot. And then I think that Florida versus Mississippi, Harry takes it easily. Unfortunately, Harry's one of those coaches that just plays better in the playoffs and plays better in conference games. So I think he gets it. And then you potentially have three teams coming out of the SEC. Sunbelt, not sure that we have a human in the Sunbelt. Um, yeah, we do. Mike's at Middle Tennessee State, if I remember correctly. So all roads lead through Middle Tennessee. Uh, in the East, I don't see that changing. I don't. There's not a team that's going to challenge them. Middle Tennessee's on the verge of moving up to Conference USA. Uh, in the West, it'll be Louisiana Monroe versus Southern Methodist. I don't see anyone beating SMU. SMU gets it, and then Middle Tennessee State takes them out, and hopefully Middle Tennessee State can be ranked high enough that they don't get one of the top three teams, which could be a Texas Tech, a Rutgers, a Maryland, Florida, Georgia, Texas. You want to avoid those teams, California or USC. So that's kind of a little bit of the predictions. Again, we're in scheduling right now. We have 2 more weeks before we begin the season. 3 more seasons, sorry. I think when you look at the history, um, I mentioned this, the Georgia class from the past season was just phenomenally high. Um, so I think that you need to keep an eye on Georgia. Texas Tech really came on near the end. Baylor had a great class. Maryland had a pretty decent class for a small one. But I think Georgia, if that class plays up to its potential, they'll make a lot of noise. They're not a playoff team you want to see as an at-large bid, because that means that they're not going to likely be in the top four, and you're going to get them in. You're going to have a hard time with dealing with Max. Again, phenomenal coach, just does good in every league he plays in. He just to recap, he has Alabama and SNCFL. Of course, he has Ohio State and GDCFL. He has Georgia. He's got Texas A&M doing well. So not one of those coaches you want to mess with. Merrill's kind of the same way at Texas Tech and Rutgers. But I think that it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm not going to take any predictions right now on who wins the Heisman, the Doak Walker, and so forth. Doak Walker will likely be someone from Texas Tech or Rutgers. That happens most years. Davey O'Brien will likely be, I hate to say it, will probably be between Texas, a quarterback from Texas, a quarterback from Maryland. Baylor won't be in though. I know everyone keeps saying how Baylor likes to throw the ball, but they're nowhere like Maryland is. They'd actually run the ball too. Florida could potentially have one up there. They have high proficiency or high quarterback ratings typically. And it'll just be interesting to see how it plays out. I think if you look at just in general what the playoffs could be, and this is a way too early, likely will be wrong. Maryland will be in the playoffs. I think Virginia Tech is in the playoffs. Rutgers is in the playoffs. I think you have Notre Dame in the playoffs, Ohio State in the playoffs. I think you have Texas and Texas Tech in the playoffs. I think I didn't skip one. Okay. I think you have Ball State in the playoffs. I think you end up with Connecticut in the playoffs. I think you end up with Idaho again in the playoffs, and then Cal and USC. And then you have Florida, Georgia, potentially Mississippi or Alabama, and then Middle Tennessee State. I think the way it'll play itself out this year, way too early to tell, but I think Florida meets up with. I think Florida will ultimately meet up with, let's just say, Texas Tech in the finals, and Harry takes it because once Harry gets in the finals, he doesn't tend to lose. So it's going to be a great year. Definitely, if you want, come join us. WWCF.us. It lists out all the teams that are available. I'll update that probably tonight. But lots of great coaches here, great community, very helpful with each other, very competitive. If you want competition, this is the league for you. Um, Not really much different than GDCFL. There's lots of competition there as well as SNCFL. The good thing about SimNation, there's so many good coaches in this. Regardless of the game that we play, you can be guaranteed you're going to be going against some of the best. If you like this, drop a like, drop a follow. I'll update the webpage with the YouTube link. And then also update the page with our Discord and our Slack so that way you can know how to join this great community. We'll stream again next week. By next week, we should be discussing week one. And it'll be interesting to see how wide open the season goes. Don't know what the schedules are. Won't know that for a little bit more. We just finished scheduling one. But scheduling 2 and 3 will go, and then of course we'll have set red shirts, and then we'll start the season. So thank you for your time tonight, and hope you have a good weekend. Thanks.